Our tradition with the Entrepreneur Awards is each year to have judges select category winners and then go through a long second judging process to pick the overall winner. When we started to talk about who was the most innovative, high-growth entrepreneur in our region for the past 10 years, the discussion lasted 2 seconds. The decision was obvious. What Chip Mahan and his team have accomplished, and the way they have accomplished it and how they treat employees and our community is truly astounding. Live Oak Bank only got its banking charter, its ability to open for business, 10 years ago this month. Today, Live Oak has 550 employees. Its spin-out technology company, nCino, has 500 employees. Its latest venture, Aperture, has 100 employees, including 55 in downtown Wilmington. And its venture arm, Canopy, has started making additional investments. By itself, Live Oak is making Wilmington a player in the fast-growing fintech, or financial technology, industry. Live Oak is now a publicly traded company worth more than $1 billion, while nCino earlier this year raised $51 million at a valuation of more than $1 billion. The growth of Live Oak and its offshoots can be shown in market caps, employee counts, and buildings, but its true impact on our community is much harder to measure. First, Live Oak helped our region clear a significant psychological hurdle. The company has definitively proven that a modern business in the Wilmington area can attract the talent and other resources needed to start, grow, and thrive in a competitive global industry in the internet age. I think that's working. Live Oak has also been beyond an ideal corporate citizen. It is hard to attend a nonprofit event in town without Live Oak not only being a sponsor, but often participating on the board of directors. Publicly, and even more behind the scenes, Live Oak supports worthy initiatives with time and treasure. The company is pushing our community to continue developing assets and capabilities that make our region an even greater place to live and work. They are helping build a better community for all their employees, and the rest of us are benefiting for it. Ironically, Live Oak Bank never previously won a Coastal Entrepreneur Award. The company was nominated several times, but these awards largely focus on organizations before they're well known, and Chip was already on the cover of American Banker magazine soon after the bank started. So today I'm happy to have Chip and Live Oak officially join the ranks of Coastal Entrepreneur Award winners. For those of you who don't know, the Stanley Cup of the Entrepreneur Awards is that surfboard over there, which was made by a previous winner, Kids Making It, and Live Oak Bank is now etched onto our surfboard. Chip, you get to keep the surfboard for a year, but you'll have to hand it off to the overall winner in 2019, so don't let anybody at Live Oak take it to the beach and break it. However, we did have Kids Making It make a miniature version of it for you that you can keep. So please join me in honoring our Entrepreneur of the Decade, Chip Mahan.
Wow. Rob, my appreciation for this award is only exceeded by the honor that I feel being in the room with you, the best of the best, the entrepreneurs and business folks of southeastern North Carolina. You are the creators, the designers, the caretakers of the American dream. You own it. You live it. You don't see risk where others do. You are undaunted. You are tireless. You are persistent. You are resistant. You are fearless. And some of you are insomniacs. I know you. You know each other. We are one. Garth Brooks wrote a song about us called Standing Outside the Fire. Here are a few words. We call them fools who have to dance within the flame, who chants the sorrow and the shame that always comes with getting burned. But you got to be tough when consumed by desire, because it's just not enough to stand outside the fire. Rob has asked me to chat a little bit about Live Oak Bank, and I'm going to do that, and to do a couple other things here quickly, and talk about financial services industry in general. So we passed Wells Fargo recently as the #1 SBA lender in the country. We took the company public in July of 15. The bank was about $800 million at the time. Now we're about $3.6 billion. The SBA allows you to lend to 1,100 industries. We are in 20. Profits are good. Wall Street says we'll make about $50 million this year. We're good with that. I see absolutely no reason that this bank can't be $50 to $100 billion bank in a reasonably short period of time. If you're in 20 industries and you can go to 1,100, and we have the platform, we have the culture, the technology, we have UNCW and 300 folks between Encino and Live Oak at UNCW, we can extend this. That said, alas, we have figured something out. The richest man in the world sells something other than books. We entered into a joint venture with First Data Corporation in New York City in October of this year. First Data is a big New York City company that does, for 50 years, debit card transactions, credit card transactions, $63 billion a year, and we own together a data center and a business in Austin, Texas. This business does online banking and bill pay for 550 banks. It's about a $60 million revenue business, dropping about 15 to the bottom line. And that data center in Austin, Texas costs $6.5 million to operate. Old servers, old code. My partner, Neil Underwood, who's in the audience, negotiated a deal with Mr. Bezos' subsidiary, Amazon Web Services. Mr. Bezos decided in 2006 he was going to let others use his computers. This year he'll do $25 billion in revenues. This year he will spend $10 billion on capital expenditures. He has the same thesis we do at Live Oak Bank. We say it every day. Treat every customer like the only customer in the bank. Our investment in a payments company in Glastonbury, Connecticut, has had 40 price reductions from Mr. Bezos. Neil negotiated that $6.5 million down when he takes that old code out of that data center in Austin, Texas, and puts it in Mr. Bezos' data center. $700,000. When Neil and his team complete the software that he's writing, $100,000. So why do I tell you this? We are making investments at Live Oak Bank and Neil and his team in people that have done it before. The entire financial services industry is going to change rapidly. The industry uses 40-year-old technology, and it's going to come to an end. He's probably going to run the entire infrastructure for financial services on the planet. And we are going to be in the middle of it, right here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Just one last thought on that, right? So we, the banking business, right, has spent decades trying to serve you, our customer, in a full service strategy. 200,000 branches, millions of tellers, customer service reps, call centers. Let me see a hand that has spoken to the call center at Amazon, at Uber, at Apple. It's self-service. They know how to elegantly display in a digital fashion those things that we can do in the banking business, and we're going to do it. I can remember when my grandfather was getting older, he used to tell stories and he'd repeat himself sometimes, so I'm going to make the assumption that being the wonderful business people that you are, that you know how to operate your business. Maybe I'm going to tell you a few stories now that things that went wrong in my life, and maybe a few lessons learned. Ultimately, never give up. That's going to be the tagline of a couple of these stories. So 1973, 22 years old, Wachovia Bank and Trust Company, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My supervisor says, come to my office. Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 1973, across the street from Reynolds Tobacco Company. Everybody smoked. He had a big cigar. You couldn't even see him in the room. You even went to the basketball games and people would smoke in the seats, for the good Lord's sakes, right? He said, son, I'm going to give you a little advice. Whatever your supervisor says, you should make a priority. Yes, sir. Next day, son, come into my office. Yes, sir. Will you change my tires? Yes, sir. 2 weeks later, he says, we're having a cocktail party. And I want you to go out and get a half a gallon of bourbon, scotch, gin, and vodka. And I want you to be delivering that right here at the door of the Wachovia Bank and Trust Company, 32 floors at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, you know what happens at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody's going out those revolving doors. And I tripped and fell and smashed all the liquor bottles, cut myself to pieces. So now you got a decision to make, right? Are you going to run? Well, we had a guy there named Calvin who was like Radar O'Reilly, and so he finally helped me through all that. Calvin was also the guy that when it snowed, he told everybody to go home, and the CEO had a fit on that one. But so the punchline there is, yeah, I'd probably still take my supervisor's warning and do that first. Next quick story. Peggy's going to get a kick out of this one. Acquiring your hometown bank. So 10 years down the road, I made the decision that it's binary. You can either be an employee or an owner. And I wanted to be an owner. So we grew up in Frankfort, Kentucky, the state capital, 28,000 folks. And our hometown bank held the state depository. Interest rates are at 21% in the year 1980. By the fall of 1982, interest rates are about 13%, but the bank is coining money. And I'm on a YS-11 Piedmont flight from Lexington, Kentucky, through Tri-Cities, Tennessee, to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm talking to a colleague and say, you know, the directors are stealing stock from widows and orphans at 25 cents on the dollar. And I think we could actually figure out a way to offer them 3 times that and own the bank for free. And this guy leans around the corner of the seat behind me and he says, that's got to be the Farmers Bank in Frankfort. That guy is the richest guy in the state of Kentucky today. We stopped in Tri-Cities. I got off the airplane. I went to his house. We talked all night long. I drove at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to work on time. Came running into the house to see, and Peggy and I have been together since we were 11. I met her at 11, wrote in her yearbook at 14 I was going to marry her, married her at 22, came running in to sit down at the dinner table and said, baby, here we go. Let's do this. Let's get out a yellow pad. Let's put down the positives and negatives. Negatives on the right, positives on the left. We had a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, right? Everything's negative. Everything's... So, baby, you know, baby, I got to try this. This makes so much sense. The CEO had already said, there's no chance in hell. You got no chance of pulling this off. So I quit. And she said, how much time I got? I said, well, we haven't got this bank ball yet. She said, well, you just need to understand wherever you hang your hat is home. So I drove back to my hometown. So think the Murkison building. So Kinston is about the same size as Frankfort, Kentucky. So I rented a office on the 12th floor of that dilapidated building. Nobody else was in the building. One light coming down from the ceiling. This was before cell phones, before computers. I had a Radio Shack answering phone. We made an offer to the board of directors, which they summarily rejected. And of course, I went to school with all their kids. So, you know, this is the chairman of the newspaper. This is the chairman of the water company saying that this kid's coming back to destroy the community. I went door to door to everybody that I thought owned stock in the bank, 405 shareholders. You know how much stock I got? Not a share. Had to crawl on my belly to get my job back. And so the moral of that story is, do not attempt a hostile takeover of a community bank. So things worked out after that. I was hired to run a community bank in Lexington, Kentucky. We were fortunate enough to sell it to Bank One and make a profit. We raised $16 million to start another company called Cardinal Bank Shares, the thesis of which was to buy pig path banks in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, and start banks in the cities of Lexington and Louisville. So loans in the city, deposits in the country. Number one up, the Harlan National Bank in Harlan, Kentucky. The only place that the Greyhound Bus Company turns around and goes back out the way it came in. Vernon Cole, CEO. So, Vernon, I'm coming down with my ex-Wachovia guys, and we're going to do due diligence on your loan portfolio. Yeah, that's good. Come on down, son. Okay, here we are. We need to go to the file room and get the credit files. File room? We don't have a file room. What do you mean you don't have a file room? Don't you have a special assets group? No. Vernon reaches into his desk and he pulls out paper about that thick and says, those are our files. No credit files? Vernon served in World War II, reached into the other side of his desk, pulled out his .45 service revolver and cocked it and said, no, we don't have any credit problems. 90 days later, for those of you that are old enough to remember Mike Milken in the junk bond era, that hit. So $10 million of the bonds in that bank traded at 17 cents on the dollar, so call that $2 million bucks. So 8 of the 16 were gone. Never give up. We dealt with our regulators, we worked our way through it. And the takeaway there really is you can never, ever do enough due diligence. Just keep digging. Roll the tape forward. My brother-in-law and I started the first bank on the internet in October of 1995. Ironically, we beat Wells Fargo to market by 30 days. CFO comes into my office at 10 o'clock in the morning and says, Mahan, we got a problem. All right, Parts, what's the problem? Can't make payroll. We're about ready to take the company public and we can't make payroll. Right. So I called Jim Blanchard, my good friend that runs the Synovus Bank and Trust Company in Columbus, Georgia. He said, my son will be there in an hour and a half. And he said, I'll lend you $10 million, you have to guarantee it, and everything's going to be good. Takeaway, don't be penny wise and pound foolish when you hire a CFO, and have a great relationship with your banker. And if you need a bank, I can help you out. Now we are public at S1 Corporation. It is 1999. Guys come in the office and said, Mahan, we got a big deal going with the ABN AMRO Bank in Amsterdam, Holland. You need to get on the plane tonight and help close this deal. I know you got the analysts coming in the next day, but the senior management team is going to meet you at Schiphol, the airport there, and you're going to turn around and fly back on the same plane that came over. Okay, I got that. I'd be happy to help. So at about 7:30 that night, I'm looking down the runway in Hartsfield, and we're number 36 for takeoff. We had a valuation at that time of $6 billion, and we're losing 20 or 30 million bucks a year. And Delta had a $2 billion market cap. What is wrong with this picture? So we went to Amsterdam, we turned around and came back. So I called a board meeting and I said, guys, we absolutely have to raise capital. So we raised $300 million worth of capital from our customers, not from Wall Street. State Farm Insurance put up $100 million, Zurich put up $75 million, Fleet put up $25 million, and this goes to show about how relationships continue. Brian Moynihan was the general counsel at Fleet at the time. He's now the CEO of the Bank of America. Takeaway, raise capital when you don't need it. You can never have enough capital. I'm going to apologize in advance to Susan Jansen, who's in the audience, who was a senior person at the FDIC and now with Live Oak Bank. So 2006, we come up with the idea for Live Oak Bank. 2007, we filed our application with the FDIC. And we had started those banks in Lexington and Louisville before it. It took about 4 months. So now this is going on forever. So my partner, David Luck, and I said, well, we got to get to the right person. So we get a meeting with Sheila Bair, who is the chairperson of the FDIC. Come on in. I hear you guys are from the doggy bank. Yes, ma'am, we are. I hear you guys want to have no branches. I hear you want to make loans just to veterinarians in all 50 states. Yes, ma'am, that's correct. We don't like any of that. We like branches. We don't like concentration risk, and we don't like you lending money out of area. You almost hit for the cycle. So we did get our charter on May the 12th, 2008, as Rob alluded to a bit ago. And everybody knows what happened in the fall of '08. The world came to an end. David Luck, my co-founder and chief credit officer, comes to my office one day in late September and says, step into the parking lot. We got to talk. We're done. Because our business model, as many of you know, is to make a government guaranteed loan, sell it in the secondary market, and pay our folks. No, Parts, look, never give up. Panic slowly. We got this. We can raise some capital. We did raise some capital with some lovely people here in Wilmington. But in March of '09, I got a call from the Wicked Witch of the West. Doreen Eberly ran the FDIC office for the Atlanta region. Said, Mr. Mahan, I want you in my office tomorrow. Yes, ma'am, I'll be right there. So my partner Neil Underwood and I go over there. And I got to tell you a little bit about federal banking regulators. Federal banking regulators are undefeated, untied, and unscored upon. They do not have a heart. And they have something that is impossible to replicate. They don't blink. You could put all of those fingers on the table in front, chop them off with a butcher block, and they won't blink. So she leaned over and kind of got in my personal space and said, Mr. Mahan, I want you to sell or liquidate this bank. No, ma'am, we're not going to do that. We have $140 million in commitments to veterinarians, and we are going to stay the course. You have to do what you have to do, and this meeting is over. So my partner, Neil Underwood, was with me. And Neil is an instant gratification guy. I have never been in a meeting with Neil that he didn't say, Mahan, on a 1 to 10, how did we do? So this was his first meeting with the FDIC. And he says, Mahan, how did we do? Son, she told you to liquidate the bank. All of us are blessed to be in this town, this wonderful geography, where we can attract and retain talent to operate our businesses. My gracious, Pierre Naudet, who put Encino on his back, raising capital, they're trying to buy a stock at a $1.4 billion valuation this week, is hiring 158 people this year. Pierre has 10 recruiters, and we ain't in the Silicon Valley. I know the Silicon Valley. I know what's going on out there. Those kids are on LinkedIn every day. They're looking for the next gig. They want their options to vest on the way to lunch. And ladies and gentlemen, that's not you. You care about your folks. You care about your customers. You care about your shareholders. And you know it's a marathon and not a sprint. You have built and are building great, long-lasting businesses in our town. And I'm in awe of you. Garth, take us to the barn.